Okay, we're going to start now. So thank you everybody for being here and Happy New Year. I'm super excited to have Janice McDonald as our first WXN Virtual Book Club author. And Janice and I go way back, well, at least 5 years back. And I'm so excited. Janice is one of our WXN Top 100 Hall of Fame. And she's also featured me on her very popular and influential podcast, Fearless Women. So hopefully she'll talk a little bit about that as well today. So just to get to it, Janice is an award-winning entrepreneur. She is a 4-time WXN Top 100 winner and a 2016 WXN Hall of Fame inductee. She is a sought-after speaker and the co-author of 3 groundbreaking studies on women entrepreneurs in Canada, released in 2016, 2018, and 2020.
With my co-author, Claire Becton.
With Claire.
Important to note, since we're on the call together.
Wonderful, 2 very powerful women. She has leadership training from Harvard and INSEAD, and she was appointed to the Women's Leadership Board at Harvard Kennedy School. Janice has a BA in Communications, an MA in Canadian Studies, and she also has her Institute of Corporate Directors designation. Women in Trade Los Angeles awarded her a Global Trade Ambassador for Canada in 2017, and in 2018, she received an Inspiring 50 Women in Tech Award. She was chair of International Women's Forum Canada Ottawa chapter, and on the Global IWF Leadership Foundation Board was a director with Futurepreneur, Ashbury College, and Ottawa Senators Foundation. Her 2020 book, Fearless, Girls with Dreams, Women with Vision, is a Canadian national bestseller. Her popular and influential Fearless Women's podcast is currently in its 2nd season. We are so excited to have you, Janice. Thank you so much for being here. And please, everybody, give her a warm welcome and please enjoy the book reading today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sherry, for that really kind introduction. I have Gary, who is going to be helping me out and sharing details from things that I want to highlight with you. I am super excited about this book. You see all my little sticky notes. As I mentioned in the chat, there's so many powerful stories here. It is really incredible. These are true, authentic stories. I know you'll be deeply moved, and I'm really excited to share some of them with you. Gary, do you have the first, there we go, you're putting that up. Thank you. Okay, so what we're talking about here is real life lessons. These are on resilience, on overcoming challenges and thriving. And it's interesting that the book came out just before International Women's Day, March 2020. And here we are almost a year later, and these are timeless stories. And the new era it's more relevant than ever to be sharing the stories in this book. Next picture, if you would, Gary. Oh yeah, and thank you, Virginia, just mentioned we will have a Q&A at the end, so we'll leave time for that. So please get your questions ready. This is fun. This is just a snapshot of some, just like a little drop in the bucket of some of the fearless events that have been happening. Remember when we could go out and meet and see each other and do things? And so here's some of it. This is such a, sorry, someone's just telling me they couldn't get on, Virginia. I don't know. I'm getting texts and everything. Pardon me, everybody. So it's so deeply moving because this book is all about collaboration. And this is about people trusting me with their beautiful stories. And you can see the feeling of ownership and joy that people have around coming together around this idea of fearless. So next one, Gary, please. So the basis of the book really is this idea that owning our stories are a source of each of our individual strengths. We all have a unique journey. Our journey has made us thus far who we are, and tying it back to our earlier selves and that time in our youth, that some experiences that set us on our leadership journey, that's really our source of strength. So keep that in mind as you listen to this story. So I'd like to begin. This is a picture of me and my two sisters. I'm the one in the middle in blue. And I'll just read a little bit about from the book, just right from the start, celebrating the fearless girl within all of us. When I think of a fearless woman, various things come to mind. Perhaps she has tales of remarkable exploits, has overcome incredible challenges, or has soared to great heights. Her courage may be shown in other ways too. Small and quiet feats of Wonder Woman, as opposed to Herculean strength, displayed simply by putting one foot in front of the other. This book has long been a dream of mine, and I brought it into the world as a way to shine a spotlight on the experiences of diverse women as they move from being the fearless girl they once were to the fabulous women they now are. Some of the names you know well, and others you're likely learning about for the first time. Each stands in her full power, shining a light for others to follow. So, yes, Gary, we are ready. So I just made a note here, next slide please, Gary, that these stories are incredibly powerful. These are each individual women's stories. I just would want to flag it for people listening that some stories are difficult. And so I just want to, despite the fact that they're inspiring and have beautiful outcomes, I just want to flag it for you that some of them may have a reaction with you. So I just make you mindful of that. So I'd like to start with Lisa Kimmel. And she has this great quote here, which I love. I realized that the only way to be successful in my role was to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And let me just tell you a little bit about her, because I think that's such a powerful quote and a great way as we think about actually continuing to be buckled in and heading through our wild times that we are on. She starts off with a picture, and I'll just kind of show it here. That's a picture of her, a public speaking one. And she says her whole story is about how she got comfortable with being uncomfortable. And she was told, she shares how it was challenging, you know, when she would be asked or have the opportunity or forced to get up in front of a group as a young girl to speak, and that her voice would crack and she would get blotches all over her face. And she absolutely hated speaking up. Now, it's important to note that Lisa now, her current role is she oversees Canadian and Latin America operations and is the chair of the Global Women's Equity Network. She also is a WXN Top 100 Hall of Fame, and she's a recipient of the Financial Times Heroes and so many other awards and recognition. But what's so interesting is, and what's powerful to remember is that here's somebody who, you know, started off recognizing that in order to, you know, go on the journey that she wanted to, she was going to have to, you know, accept that constant feeling of being uncomfortable. And so she's overcome that. Next, I'd like to tell you about somebody, also a WXN Top 100 winner, an incredibly remarkable person. And this is Lieutenant General Christine Whitecross. And you see this beautiful quote that she has here. Nothing comes from us alone, especially not success. Teamwork, professionalism, hard work. These are the hallmarks of what defines us. And my younger self knew this. Now, she is, as I said, she's such a remarkable person, and WXN has recognized her. She is currently the commandant of the Rome NATO Defense College. She has many accolades and recognition. She's a graduate of the Advanced Military Studies and Command and Staff courses, a commander of the Order of Military Merit, as I mentioned, recognition by WXN, and in 2018, recipient of the CDAI Vimy Award. Now, her story, I'd like to share some elements of it with you. She begins with, I wouldn't say we came from a poor family because we had everything we needed and we had parents who cared for us, but we certainly didn't have any extras. The unusual dress in the photo on the next page, which I can show you right here. I don't know how well you can see it, but it's absolutely precious, was made by my mother, who was an accomplished seamstress, more for practicality reasons than anything else, and I was proud of it. I was also very unconscious of my looks. They just didn't matter. Truth is, back then, I was just happy to be alive and getting my photo taken. I saw the world through my very limited and very small, as I was always smallest in the class, lens, and my world was okay. I was tremendously naive and shy growing up, but I didn't understand innuendo, and that made me seem a bit odd to my classmates. But that didn't matter because I was also incredibly positive. Life was good and things could only get better. Was I fearless? Not really. I hated confrontation and craved being liked. But it was important to me that I did the right thing. I wasn't anyone special. Family was my anchor. Now you understand how incredibly accomplished she is and such a remarkable trailblazer. I'll give you a sense of how she ends her story. My younger self, though, would have had difficulty standing up for herself, especially in the presence of authority. She would have been too timid to speak out, to express her discomfort, or to share her concerns. The older I get, and the more responsibility I have, the more I realize how imperative this is. Standing up for myself is a legacy I hope to give my own children. It took me a while to embrace who I was and to know that I belong. And more importantly, that I have something to say and something to offer. Today, I am blessed with the best combination of both of me. So that's an insight into really a remarkable Canadian trailblazer, Lieutenant General Christine Whitecross. She's page 241. Now I'd like to tell you a little bit about another lovely and inspiring person, and this is Zainab Muse. And you see her quote here. When I completely embraced who I was and owned my journey, it no longer mattered what anyone else thought. I find that incredibly inspiring as a notion. And she tells a story. Here's a picture of her. I don't know if you can see it there. Her younger self. It's so lovely. She's an award-winning entrepreneur, a strategist, a process designer, interactive media, digital media expert, and a filmmaker. She's the founder and CEO of Winged Inc. and Creatorland. And so what I think is really interesting, it's again, another conversation in her story about finding her voice and that willingness to speak up. She begins with, growing up, I suffered severely from stage fright. I always thought it was because I was an imposter. Why was I chosen to stand in front of a microphone facing a crowd, I'd think. What do I have to say? And why does this crowd have to listen to me? And she goes on to say, it was such an issue that when I was in boarding school in Nigeria, my home country, my stage fright was a big part of being rejected for a prefectureship. I remember distinctly being told, Zainab, we were considering you for this role. You're a very brilliant girl and you're likable, but you're extremely shy. We want someone who can represent the school confidently on whatever stage they're invited to. She goes on to share how she's crushed, and I won't tell you all the parts of her story, but it's beautiful that she, if we go back to this quote, she talks about this idea of when I completely embraced who I was and owned my journey, it no longer mattered what anyone else thought. In essence, I no longer had to hustle for anyone else's acceptance. All I needed was to accept myself wholly and unconditionally. And I find that so beautiful and so moving. Next, I'd like to tell you about somebody that many of you would be familiar with, and that is Katie Telford. She has a beautiful quote here when we think about her, again, as another trailblazer in our country. I had to say yes to new things. I had to take risks. I had to acquire the ability to manage through extreme pressure and to accept public scrutiny. I'll just give you a couple of comments that she has shared from her story. When I was 12, I walked on the floor of the Ontario legislature as a page, the youngest in my group. I delivered notes between ministers and tabled the budget on the desks of members of provincial parliament. It was a quiet role, but an essential role. That role, a role that even let me take time out of school. Being in that chamber, living the traditions of the parliamentary system and witnessing the politics of the day was a privilege and experience that left a lasting impression on me. Then she goes on to talk about how she dove into the world of partisan politics in her 20s. And I think it's such a wonderful reminder of how we do, in order to be fearless, say yes to new things, take those risks, and figure out how to manage through the pressure. And in her case, on top of it, accept public scrutiny, which can be quite challenging. Next is Victoria Belcher. And I'll warn you, she's had a difficult journey, but her career now is one of incredible inspiration. She's a corporate executive with a global Fortune 500 organization, an innovative leader and visionary with over 2 decades of senior level experience. She's also an incredible speaker, a trusted voice in her industry, and respected board member for several organizations. So that's, the public facing, the thing that you do know about her. But here's what she shared about her earlier life. And I love this picture. It's so beautiful. So here it begins. At first look, those natural curls and that cute dress offer the appearance of normality to the outside world. But my childhood was anything but normal. Hidden behind the feigned smile and the scratched knees were years of abuse and neglect at the hands of my mother. I was born to a troubled teenager, addicted to drugs and alcohol, someone whose biological and foster family set poor examples of family values and loving behavior. She didn't know how to care for someone else. She couldn't even take care of herself. For the first years of my life, I was emotionally and physically abused, pushed downstairs, a cigarette in my eye, a lack of basic necessities, and quite frankly, a lack of love. The last words my biological mother uttered when I was in her care were, "Come and get her before I kill her." Thankfully and fortunately, I was adopted and avoided living a life in the child welfare system. This was the beginning of my transformation. I had to learn to trust again, to live and to love without being scared of being abused or, my biggest fear, being rejected. I am a fighter even today. I vowed to be bigger and better than where I came from. I was not a product of my life experiences. This is why I developed my unstoppable attitude and my approach to life with it's a hashtag, no excuses. Once naturally quiet and cautious, I pushed myself to become outgoing and embrace opportunities rather than shy away. I began working at age 11 and took my first management role at 14 at Bata Shoes. I worked full-time through university and bought my first house at 19. I became an executive at barely 24 and have built a career on leading significant change and transformation. Though it was a leadership path that many struggle to live by, one that challenges the status quo and strives not just for shareholder value, but also for doing the right thing. My leadership mission includes being bold and courageous and communicating with radical candor, all rooted in the desire to see others succeed. This approach has also built a network of friends and colleagues who support me in every challenge I take on. In this picture of me today, there it is. Oops, can you see it? There's strength, boldness, courage, and relentless drive. Behind those eyes, you can see kindness, compassion, and understanding. And those smile lines show that the journey has also come with great joy and laughter, and that I'm ready to share it all with you. I think it's a beautiful story. Next, I would like to share with you a story from an entrepreneur called Jennifer Harper. And she's having tremendous success actually with her company. I'll tell you a little bit about her because her story is very moving. Jennifer Harper is the founder and CEO of Cheekbone Beauty Cosmetics, Inc. She developed Cheekbone to create a brand for real people that was made in Canada, not tested on animals, and gave back to the First Nations community. In 2017, she was awarded the Social Enterprise Award by Women in Niagara. My goodness, pardon me. A Social Enterprise Award by Women in Niagara Council and the Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce. And so you see this really beautiful quote that she has here. And let me tell you some of the story that adds to that powerful quote. She begins by saying, "This is the story of how Cheekbone started, because without my sobriety, it would not exist. This is the story of a woman. She is 40 years old, married with a couple of children, and she is Ojibwe Canadian. She works full time, and if you met her 10 years ago, you would think she had everything she could want: a house, a nice car, family, friends, and a good job. The problem was her past, her family's past. She had pain, and she had no idea that it was likely rooted in the suffering some of her family had experienced. She had a grandmother who was a residential school survivor, which basically means she made it out. She didn't die at the school. But that grandmother left the system with scars, numerous scars, physical and emotional. She was taken from the family without consent. She was put in a school system and abused repeatedly. If she tried to speak Ojibwe, she would be physically punished. The grandmother went on to have 8 children. And she tells a beautiful, the story continues and it's very, very moving. I'll just highlight a few more things from the story. When she's talking about herself now, Jen. When Jen was in her teens, living without any professional or spiritual help, her pain and lack of self-identity was too much. She turned to alcohol. It suppressed her feelings of worthlessness, of being abandoned by her father. It helped her deal with her loneliness. She was raised poor by a single mother and learned to drink her pain away. She put herself in vulnerable situations, always involving alcohol. She continued to drink. She got married, but into her 30s, she continued to drink. And she goes on with other elements of the story, which I won't give you all the details, but I have to leave some for you to discover on your own. But I will tell you the beautiful and powerful way that she is living now. I am happy to say that I've been sober since November 26th. I'm happy to say that I've been sober since November 26th, 2014. And yes, I have been speaking about me because of how she wrote the story. But that woman no longer exists. I have overcome alcoholism and I feel great about who I am. I needed to quit the narrative about me, about my people. That narrative had to change. After getting sober,
I realized I wanted to be part of the solution and alter the course of my family. And then this relates to that beautiful quote. I believe, as has been said many times, that what didn't kill me only made me stronger. And so if you have a chance, please follow Jen Harper online. This is a picture, a current picture, if you can see it. She has that beautiful shirt on, which I love, talking about resilient and relentless, which I think is really powerful. Next, I would like to tell you, and everybody can still hear me, I hope. I'd like to tell you about Nancy Chao, and she is on page 152. I marked her here. Again, a very powerful story, deeply moving. So, Nancy Chao, you can see the one picture is her standing with her mother, and she's holding a trophy. So I'll begin. When I won the public speaking competition in grade 3, I was thrilled. I had shared my story in front of the entire school, and I felt fearless. I knew I had compelling stories to tell, but soon after, I lost the ability to find the right words. I did not have any words to describe what happened to me when he locked the door. I have since grown up, and I have an amazing husband and 2 wonderful children. A truly unafraid, there's some other details, but I'll just skip it along. A truly unafraid woman brought me to the table. She pulled up a chair and sat next to me until I could find my words again. She supported me until my own voice was able to facilitate others around the same table. Phenomenal women have the strength to truly empower others. They know that it is a journey that takes resiliency. Back on stage in the school gym, looking out at 400 people, my fearless self returned. Now, every month, I organize time for women to come and sit around the table where it is easy to pull up another chair. We share stories about work, life, anything, but most importantly, we listen and embrace all words. So this is Nancy's story. She's always pursued her passion for elevating others. Since receiving her Bachelor of Concurrent Education from Queen's, she has used her teaching experience to foster learning at all educational and social levels. So again, another beautiful story. Next, Gary, if we could move on to Jackie King. So she begins talking about, and it's a theme, and I think it's so, again, so powerful, theme of overcoming, the theme of using our voice, finding our voice and using our voice. So she talks about, I'll just get to the point of overcoming and challenges. Like many, I've faced adversity in my life. The details don't matter, but the effects are the same. Something happens that has the potential to knock you down and make you give up. But from an early age, I decided that no matter what happened, I would not be a victim. I would never give up when there were more important things at stake. And I would try to focus on the lessons of life and the positive. For me, that came down to 2 things: perspective and perseverance. So she talked about how she had 2 young children, and she unexpectedly became a single mother. I made a plan. I set goals. Sometimes these goals were short term. I just have to make it through today. I just have to make it to the next payday. I just have to get through this semester. There were times when I wasn't sure I could do it, but I had 2 little people counting on me. So I put on a smile and my Wonder Woman cape to convince my kids that mom's got this. It made our life seem like an adventure. And in the process, I convinced myself. And finally, because she starts her story talking about being shy, and she said, I'm still shy, but it hasn't stopped me from leading. Instead of being out front, I build the team around me. I encourage them to think big, take chances, and embrace the lessons of failure. In other words, I Try to inspire them to be fearless and to imagine what's possible. And so Jackie King is an entrepreneurial, forward-thinking business leader with a 20-year track record. She is known for being a visionary strategist, respected as a proponent of empowerment and accountability. So a beautiful story, again, of her journey. Going in a slightly different direction, I would like to tell you, some of you may know this person, Jan Frolic. And I love this story because she's got this picture of her with her hat and glasses and, you know, this beautiful smile. So she is a serial entrepreneur with a passion for advocacy and inclusion. She's the Senior VP Global Engagement at Women of Influence Worldwide. So here's how she begins her story, and you can see it there. I'm happy. I've always been happy, and I've always been comfortable being me. Isn't that beautiful? But I didn't realize it until I saw these pictures. There's something soothing about seeing how similar I am to who I was as a child. Stupid hats, big glasses, and a big smile seem to have been my thing right from the beginning. It's so much more obvious that I'm exactly the me I'm supposed to be, and that there has been a natural evolution of my authentic self over the past half century. Being comfortable in my skin from an early age has allowed me to really know and understand who I am. And isn't that so moving? There's so much more to learn about her, but I'll take you next to Lorraine Ben. And hers, again, is also an incredibly moving story in a different way. She is an Irish immigrant, and she is chief executive of Lockheed Martin Canada, so a real trailblazer. And she also talks about this idea of being out of your comfort zone. And she talks specifically about this picture that you see in front of her. And she said, I chose the photos you see in this story because they depict my life in worlds apart, because the other one is really amazing. She's, I don't know if you can see it there in front of this incredible plane in her role. But she says, they represent the humble beginnings that always remain a constant source of grounding in my life. As a child, I had a big imagination and lofty dreams. But never did I dream that I'd find myself at the helm of a corporate office. And she goes on to talk about this idea of, throughout my life, I've had a thirst for learning and for trying something new. These traits guided me to always strive for improvement. I wanted to do great things in my career, but I was shy in a sea of accomplished men. I had to force myself out of my comfort zone on so many occasions by stepping up to the table, leaning in, and occasionally taking the stage. And you see her quote here, being knowledgeable in your craft, your specialty, gives you the confidence to be a leader and to take risks. So again, we're seeing some of the themes that come up around, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable and so much more. So now let me tell you about Sangeeta Patel. You've probably seen her in ET and other places, ET Canada, etc. So she's currently the host of HGTV's Home to Win, on-air personality with ET Canada. She has a major passion for fitness, food, usually healthy, she says, and having those real conversations. She's also cover girl in Canada, which is really exciting to see her image when you're out shopping. Let me tell you about her. So I was born on January 2nd, 1979, as the third child in my family. My parents had come to Canada not long before. My dad had left my mom in India while she was pregnant with my brother to start a better life for his family in North America. I can't even imagine the struggles they went through to make a life in their new country, leaving behind everything they knew in India. I saw firsthand what they had to go through to survive, and watching them taught me the value of hard work, what parents would do for their kids. And I love this quote that she has there, which I think, again, we can take a lot of inspiration from. I always ask one question: Why not? And that question has led me along so many different paths, from being an electrical engineer to now appearing on TV, covering entertainment and hosting an HGTV show. I'm 40 now and truly blessed with incredible kids, husband, my family, a career I love, and a passion for life. That little girl with the ribbons is still me. And then she encourages all of us to live life to the fullest. I have many more stories that I'd like to be able to share with you, but I also want to be open to question. Yes. Oh, okay. Thank you, Claire. So Claire has asked me a question and I will answer that right now. Her question is, and Claire is in the book. What page are you on, Claire? I should know this off by heart, but she is in the
218.
very powerful story that she tells. But her question is, did some women decline to be part of your book? And if so, do you know why? So yes, they did. And so I'll give you an example. It was deeply moving. One of the women that I had invited to be part of the project, and my approach in terms of who ended up in the book was really serendipity. I invited all kinds of women from all kinds of backgrounds to be part of the project, and I just felt like whoever ends up in the book is who's meant to be in the book. So very accomplished, remarkable woman had said to me, I kept trying to get this ready. I kept trying to prepare my submission to be part of this project because she wanted to be part of the project. However, she said, as you know, Janice, I didn't send it in, which I said, there's no explanation required in why you chose not to. And she said, no, I'd really like to share with you why I'm not part of it. And she said, because I realized that if I included this submission, I would have to come to terms with certain things that happened to me earlier in my childhood. And she said, I'm coming to terms with those things that happened. But if I included them in your book, I would have to share them with my family, particularly my children. And she said, I'm just not ready to do that. So that's one example of somebody who had that struggle versus, by contrast, if you look at Nancy Chao, for example, who I highlighted earlier, who talked about her journey and what happened to her in her childhood. She used the book and this whole, pulling together the story as a way to, as a prompt to actually have those meaningful conversations with her children. So she actually said she found it incredibly cathartic to go through, and she created the submission, sent it in, and then used it as a launch point for those deep conversations. So as I said, again, this kind of serendipitous approach to who was part of it, and and who's in it. And it's such a beautiful book. And the thing is, there's so many more stories because, we all frankly have a beautiful story to share. And, where I started this was around this idea of, each of us can find a lot of strength if we figure out those stories. So Claire, you've asked me another, can you share some stories of feedback where the women has helped or inspired other women? Well, absolutely. I also, I have you, Claire, on here, and then also Tina Moon, who's in the book as well. And I'd love it if either of you would like to share some of your thoughts on being part of this book, and kind of that journey and what it has meant to craft the story. And Gary, if you just go ahead one more, please, I'll show people. I have this as homework for those of you that aren't part of the book, obviously, but for you to get a sense of how this came together. So this is the story behind, how it came to be. And so I see some other questions coming in, which I will refer to shortly. Thank you, Maria, and others for the question. But Oh, we can hear the audience, but Janice can't hear us. So if you'd like to ask a question, yes, please, please type your, thank you everybody for your kindness. I really don't know why it's not working and why this isn't working, and try it one more time. Try it one more time, it's not working. But anyways, so if you look on the slide that I have in front of you, which is, this is an action item for anybody who's interested, is to, figure out and own your own fearless story. So go and find a picture of your fearless younger self. And in my case, you can see the one, this is the picture that actually was the inspiration for the whole book. This is my 10-year-old self. One of the things that's funny that you can see, not entirely, but you can, if you kind of take a closer look, I was really into cutting my own hair. And so that's why you see it really kind of uneven in the picture. But I didn't care. I thought I was rocking it. And so how the actual, project came to be is that this has always been like a North Star for me, this picture. I feel like that's, my fearless self at 10. And so I would, in opportunities that I would have to be speaking all around the world, particularly not only for women audiences, but particularly for women audiences, I would encourage people to, I would share how this story is that North Star for me, that, I look at that and I sort of feel like that girl thought she could do anything. And so, I always keep it handy. And I started to ask people to go and find that for themselves as well. And so that's basically the basis of the book. Find that picture of your, fearless younger self. Find a current picture and then kind of map, what's the story arc that from where you were to where you are now? How did that come together? And thank you, Juliet, for loving my freckles. I still love my freckles. I need some sunshine for them to come back. But I'll give you an example from when I presented this in a large group in California. And one of the women had said to me, and thank you, Maureen, for recognizing it is a great homework assignment. I think you'll find it deeply moving, and a lot of people do. And I'll give you an example. So one of the, as I mentioned, I was presenting this at a big conference, and I had encouraged people to do the same thing. And one of the women said to me that she had wanted to, it was picture day, and she said to her mother, she wanted to wear her brother's suit for picture day. And her mother was concerned and said, oh, I don't think this is going to go well, and she's like, doesn't matter. That's what I want to wear. I want to look like a business person. So needless to say, she went and she wore her brother's business suit, and clearly her mother was right. It didn't go well. Not all the kids were as, sometimes children can be less open and welcoming, not all, but this was her experience. Anyway, she said when she went and did this homework, she found it so incredibly deeply moving, because she realized when she went and found that picture, she really felt very centered and realized oh my gosh, I basically wear that suit every day, every day for work. This is what I wear. And so she found, she was able to that was that vision that she had in her head, even as a young person. And she was able to bridge the two together and kind of reclaim that. And so that's what people have found to be incredibly powerful. So let me just check. There was questions, some people. Okay, yes. So my podcast, this is really fun. I'm excited to tell you all about it. And there's a new episode every single Friday. And yes, the lovely and talented Sherry Stevens has been a guest, and Claire Beckton, who's also on, has been a guest. And it's really incredible conversations. There's a lot of candor, a lot of depth, very authentic conversations. And you're going to hear some pretty meaningful and moving insights that people are offering, both from, how they've been fearless and things they've overcome, and sometimes tips and tricks too. One of the things I will often ask people, for example, is, and I think this will resonate with a lot of people here, is how do you take criticism? and how do you take feedback? And what's interesting is, again, broadly speaking, so each person's answer is different, but there often is some difficulty, particularly for ambitious and successful women, to kind of slow down and feel comfortable to take that praise that they're getting and kind of say, yes, I did do that, thank you. Sometimes there's some of that reluctance, and yet at the same time, some will say, I'm okay with accepting criticism. Some will say it really depends on who's giving the criticism. And some will say, I don't see it as criticism. I really think about it as, feedback to, make me better. And so that's one of the questions that, that's often answered. And obviously I'll go to the next one actually, Gary. So obviously, if you have questions, please type them in for me. But one of the things in terms of things I'd like you to think about when you're thinking about your own journeys and where you want to be, regardless, wherever you are right now, where you want to go, where you want to get to, is to remember, and because these are such challenging times and it's so incredibly difficult, but as we gather today, on this call and share our own thoughts around being fearless and leading in times of a new era and a challenging time, I want to remind all of you, you really do have this, right? You've got this. But what's important is you don't have to do this alone. And this idea of, really think about whatever that challenge that you are facing is. Think about who can help. Just do that audit and ask yourself, who actually can help me? And then from there, similarly, it's important to then follow it up with asking for help. Because in my experience, so many people are more than willing to help, and recognizing, of course, this is a unique time and people may be under additional, stress given the unique challenges that we're facing. But at the same time, we have an opportunity to kind of open up and be available for others in perhaps ways we weren't in the past. So, keep in mind that people are not mind readers, and that if anything that this book, in summary would tell you is that, the world really does need each and every one of your authentic leadership. It's incredibly important and the world needs it. And we need our women leaders to stand up and make a difference. Of course, I would welcome you to join our Fearless community. You can find the Fearless Women podcast anywhere that you find your favorite anywhere you find your podcast, and always interested in suggestions of amazing people to interview. The list of, as I said, it's a new episode every single week. And we launched on International Women's Day on March 2019 with Minister Mary Ng, which was a beautiful way to kind of start the conversation. But we have had people from all different kinds of backgrounds, and men and women, all fearless, and sharing their insights and inspiration. And whether it's the book or the podcast, one thing I can say with certainty is we absolutely all of us need to continue to be fearless. And that can be sometimes as simple as just putting one foot in front of the other. So unfortunately, since I can't hear, I will, this is so strange, I must say. I'm doing the best I can. I don't know why audio is showing as working for me. So I have no idea why I can't hear anybody. But if anybody has any additional questions or, wants to type it in, I'd be happy to answer it. Recognizing it makes it hard to have a discussion without without an ability to converse with me. And so that just means Sherry and Virginia and Karen and Gary, you're gonna have to invite me back another time. So that, thank you, so that I absolutely could answer additional questions. Please, if anybody has something in mind that they want to ask me. Oh, there's one. What is the lifetime? When is a lifetime of work and contribution enough? Can one ever rest on one's laurels and simply be? Oh, what a beautiful question. What a beautiful thought. Well, you know, a couple of thoughts on that. One thing that comes to mind for me is our success definition really is our own. So if somebody wants to continue on working and contributing, that is for them to pursue. I think, you know, in my case, I love lifelong learning. I love the notion of reinvention. You know, who I was and what I was doing is not necessarily what I'm interested in or continuing to pursue right now. So, you know, the notion of resting on one's laurels, I'm not sure about that, but certainly the idea of simply being, I think, is a beautiful idea when we think about how challenging the times are right now. This idea of, you know, making time, I think, particularly now, and companies and executives that I work with, like all over the world, self-care is one of the things that is required to be prioritized, particularly right now during this unique time. So what was the most surprising, Tina Moon, who, as I said, is in the book, what was the most surprising or unexpected to you in the process of writing this book? Oh, so beautiful. A lot of surprising and interesting things, Tina, and thank you for asking and thank you for being part of it. One thing I will say is that, you know, people trusted me in a very meaningful and deep way with very powerful stories, their stories in their own authentic words. And so I found that deeply moving, that people were willing to share in such a deep way, you know, their journey. And if you look at the pictures, these are the kind of pictures that you would not see even of your best friend. You may not, you know, somebody that you maybe met later on in life, you wouldn't necessarily have that opportunity to see that younger picture of themselves. So in some ways, this is almost like, you know, going and looking at like at their moms, you know, on the piano or on the fridge, or, you know, you're seeing those younger pictures. And so I found that to be really deeply moving. Claire, you have a question. What is the one thing you would tell your 10-year-old self? Yeah, so that's a beautiful question. I love that, Claire. I would tell my 10-year-old self really just to go for it. You know, I so simply, you know, and to remember not to put a ceiling where there should be blue sky. You know, yesterday, I have an episode coming up with a most remarkable person. Some of you may be aware of Leah Gramanas, and she has an organization called Up With Women. She's just so phenomenal, and her organization supports women and children out of their journey from homelessness, and it's rooted in her own powerful story of homelessness as a teen herself. And she shared with me this notion that she never expected to live past being 21. And so as a result of, and she's gone on to have this remarkable career. She had tremendous success in high tech and sales, and now she has this really powerful give back organization that's changing the world for women and girls in Canada. And to hear the kind of most remarkable pursuits, you know, helicopters and motorcycles and, you know, these incredible things that she's done, that, you know, one for me would be like, you know, I could dine out on that forever. And that's just, you know, she has hundreds of these examples. And it was such a beautiful reminder of really what, you know, life is there to be lived. And so this idea of kind of just grab it and go for it. And so it's a long-winded way, Claire, of saying, you know, just kind of go for it. And the other thing that's been meaningful about this book, and one of the reasons why I think it's so powerful additionally, is when you think about for girls on their journey to, womanhood as they grow up, that often in our younger days, we are just kind of living, but slowly those pressures kind of come in, and then we start to take on ideas of what a girl is and what a girl can do or can't do, etc. And even Leah, in her podcast is coming out tomorrow, her episode on my show, she talked about having this, she goes on all these amazing motorcycle tours, and she has this incredible bike, and it's a very tough bike. And she said she realized she made a change. It was blue, and everywhere she went, people just assumed it was a guy's bike because it was, such a tough bike. So what she decided to do was paint it pink, and it is pink, 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 pink. And she has like a pink leather jacket to go with it. And she said, one of the most beautiful things is boys and girls will come up all the time and just bedazzle, like, yeah, girls can do anything, and isn't it funny that a color can convey that? But that's kind of our edited shortcut, right? We hear that, like, people see, oh, it's a serious navy blue bike, it must be a boy's bike. And here it is. She's like, no, that serious mean machine, now painted pink is hers. And so I thought that was really, really powerful. I see, Virginia, you've added another question. What is the link between our childhood dreams and our ability to accomplish and succeed? Ah, beautiful. Well, I think a couple of things. So there is some research, and I don't have it handy to reference, but often there's the conversations around what we're interested in and really kind of passionate about early on can be a very good insight into later. That doesn't mean in every case, and it doesn't mean it's a blueprint for what is, but perhaps when we're unencumbered and we think, I like this and I like that, it can be a beautiful connection to, loving what we do. Talk to many different women leaders who, and not just women, but particularly women leaders who have talked about, going back to earlier interests and kind of reconnecting with that. Not necessarily directly as a result of their, it's not because that's how they're successful, but recognizing maybe a lost love of horseback riding or playing the piano, or things to kind of round out, maybe a bit more in that self-care kind of idea, but recognizing that those early interests do offer a clue. When I talk about, the link between childhood dreams and the ability to accomplish and succeed, I think is rooted in where I started this whole conversation around this idea of if you understand your journey and your story and you find the strength in owning that, I think that can be really powerful when you cascade out and think about success and think about accomplishment. Because, if I look at Sangeeta Patel as an example, there she is as an electrical engineer, but she also, does fitness and is entertainment. And, she was interested in both of those in her younger days. It didn't say I have to fit into a box of one or the other. So I hope that answers that question. How do you define leadership? How do we raise up and recognize unconventional leadership opportunities and examples from unconventional leaders? Great. I'd love a little bit more understanding of what you mean by unconventional leaders. But what I will say, because Leah is very much on my mind, Leah Gramanas, who I mentioned is on the podcast tomorrow, she talked about realizing later in life that she is autistic, and how she didn't know that earlier on. But so she does not have a high school education, and yet somebody took a chance on her in tech, and she went into sales, and then she was incredibly successful and, financially successful. So in a marker that was very important to her, that may not be other people's, but to her, wanting that financial success because, given the instability of her home life. And so she talked about the power of, so I guess this would be a form of, her unconventional leadership. She recognized that, and she didn't know at the time that she was autistic, but what it did do is it meant that she didn't fall prey, for example, to negative water cooler chatter, or when people might have a certain kind of reaction. to her because she couldn't really read what was happening and didn't really have a sense of, whether they were mocking her or, disparaging her. And so she didn't know. So because of that, she said it was this remarkable gift because it was incredibly freeing, to be somebody who feels unencumbered. So, to me, in a sense, that would be a form of unconventional leadership, at least the way that I'm thinking of the question from a relevant example. Not sure if, I do think this idea of how do we raise up and recognize unconventional leadership, we know quite plainly that better results happen when we have diversity of thought around the table. All that research is done. My first graduate degree, I wrote on women in the appointment process in Canada on agencies, boards, councils, and commissions. That was in 1992. And, so we know women need a place at the table, and women lead differently. There's so many examples of women leaders through the pandemic seeing different outcomes than perhaps their male colleagues, not in every case, not in every situation. Just saying though, that isn't it interesting that when we have, whether it's unconventional or just more diverse, examples of leadership, that each of us can find our way and think, oh, there's a space for me to lead, even though I don't lead necessarily the exact way that, that other person leads. So I hope that that does. Another question. Common thread that sparks a woman on her path to leadership, such as a mentor, an experience such as good or bad, or was it an accumulation of moments along the way? Oh, is there a common trend that sparks a woman on her path to leadership? Isn't that interesting? I think it's all of the above. I do think it's really helpful when you have the great good fortune of a good mentor, of a champion who's in your corner, somebody who is saying, hey, I think you've got the right stuff, and somebody who's going to help you. I do believe in, Claire and I work together often. We have our Advancing Women Leaders program, which is a great example of people getting additional training that enables them to feel more comfortable in their leadership selves. And I think that's, really helpful. That training helps. It could be simply, sometimes I think it's not only that the paths are open and that there's opportunity. Sometimes it can be because it isn't open. And maybe you realize, and this is another example from my podcast, and I think about one of the women who was talking about giving advice to people about, whether you should stay in a company or, if you're looking for leadership opportunity. Her point was, if there is, if the culture is not welcoming and warm, if this isn't a place where you feel that you have space to grow and where there's, opportunity, if you've been promised opportunity and it's not materializing, even though you're following the steps of what's been outlined, then really you need to leave. Now, of course, that sounds so cut and dried, and obviously there are examples of why, you won't and you might stay and all of that. But her point being, though, overall, what is likely to happen is that, that culture is not going to change, certainly under that current leader. And so, if you've got that tension and you're looking to move forward, you're going to likely be better, see asterisk below, like, maybe but broadly speaking, your opportunities would be more limited there. And so sometimes you have to make the hard decision and say, actually, I am going to go somewhere else where my value is recognized, because that can be something that moves you forward in terms of your leadership journey, when you recognize that, hey, I didn't like that, or I didn't like my boss. Sometimes we're equally shaped by our negative experiences as well, right? We can say that looks like the kind of leadership that I absolutely do not want to emulate. And in fact, that can be an equally helpful lesson to learn, because we recognize that, to go back to the earlier question, there's so many different leadership styles, but we do know, generally speaking, a good leader makes us feel valued and safe and, welcome, and those kind of, the things that we all want. We all want to contribute meaningfully at work. We want to feel like we're part of something important, that we're contributing. And so, I think those are really important when we think about those accumulation of moments along the way. And I will say this, and I know Claire would agree with me, lots of women find that they don't think they're ready, but someone has tapped them on the shoulder and said, you are ready. You are more than ready. It's go time for you, so this idea of having champions and mentors, the mentor might push you and say, put your hand up, put your name forward, whatever that looks like. But equally, sometimes it could be a boss who's in your corner, or, just a champion from somewhere that is saying you're more than ready and it's time for you to move on. And so sometimes we ourselves can be the ones holding ourselves back because, we're thinking we don't have, it says we need 10 things and I only have 8, And we know, and again, broadly speaking, some of our male counterparts are putting their names forward with 3 out of the 10. But what I will say is, we have something to learn from our male counterparts in that way. Why? If we've got 8 out of 10 of the things that they're looking for, that's actually not even the job for you. What stretch is left? Think you want to have things that, of course you want to set yourself up for success, clearly, but at the same time, there's something to be said for thinking like, I think I could do this. And again, it goes back to that point around thinking about who can help and what's the help I need and how do I kind of get that coalition of help to make me succeed in the environment that I'm in. Another question. What is your professional goal for 2021? What is my professional goal? I don't know if I could distill it down to one thing, and it's a great question, but one thing I will say that I think is incredibly powerful, and I feel so deeply moved, and this is a great example, the conversation today, is the stories in here remind me of how important it is for each and every one of us to continue to share our own stories. So whether it's through my podcast or this book, there's more work to be done to getting women to understand their unique journey, find the strength in their unique journey, and to really tap into that and share it. And along with that, I have, if I think about women in communications and technology, where I was a past chair and very engaged, for example, in their mentorship, and co-created a program called the Protégé Project. And that whole idea was how to bring people together, so high potential women leaders, and cross them and connect them with cross industry. Didn't have to be their own industry, but match them up with CEOs as a way to move them forward. And so when I think about I don't know if I could distill it down to my one professional goal, but I can tell you that women's economic empowerment and women's leadership has been a ribbon throughout my entire career. And I think it's so, which is why, I really do love WXN, because it is profile for all kinds of different women leaders. And it is an opportunity to see leadership displayed in so many different ways, different styles of leadership, different companies and opportunities. And so, that's not going to change for me, 2021 and beyond. I would like, I funny enough, and I say it carefully, but, I'd like us to have all of our beautiful women's organizations as places for us to learn from each other and encourage and grow, etc. But I'd like it to be that women's leadership is just such an accepted reality in all arenas. And we're not there yet. We still have work to do. If we look on boards and CEOs and, Fortune 500 companies, et cetera, we're not there yet. We have work to do. So, I guess my professional goal is to, onwards as far as agitating for change in a meaningful way. And part of that is actually encouraging women everywhere to, throw their hat in the ring, whatever ring that is. And if we go back to the conversations from the book, it really is about feeling and accepting, whether it's Lisa Kimmel talking about, just getting comfortable that I'm going to be uncomfortable. And that notion of being uncomfortable is actually me growing. That's what's happening. I'm feeling a little uncertain, and, because of that, I'm growing. And there's so many other stories like that throughout the whole book that are so meaningful about people, recognizing that there's big challenges in front of them, and sometimes little challenges and everything in between. And that overall, and this is where I think it's very directly relevant as well to our current situation, this, unusual new normal that we're all living through, is that women in particular, while we're, stretched even more so, and we're losing many women from the workforce, and we know that the additional pressures that women are on, but yet here we are, we're gathering, we're having conversation, and we're inspiring each other. And I think we do have to keep reminding ourselves that we have to come together, and we do have to, lean on each other in the ways that we're able to, right? Sometimes, if I think back to when my kids were littler, if I was able to do carpool or whatever that thing was, I did it, and I, loaded up the car and did it. But similarly, when someone else did it with my kids, I accepted that help without guilt, because I thought, I'm doing what I can when I can, and somebody else will pick up the slack. And so I think we do have to remind ourselves that help is available, but we do have to ask for it. And equally that, at least in my experience, there's so many remarkable people in our community and in our network that are there for us, but we do have to ask, right? We do have to ask for help. This has been the most unusual way to proceed, but everybody's been so flexible, and it's been really lovely. Yeah, thank you, Virginia, and thank everybody for participating today. And this is a first for me. And I joked with the ladies, actually, and Gary, when we were setting this up, I said, oh, I've had every kind of tech problem happen, so whatever happens, I'll be fine. Well, I actually haven't had every tech problem happen, because I've never had sound go off. But it has been such an absolute delight, and I'm really grateful for everyone's flexibility, and people sticking it out, and for your kindness. So yeah, thank you, everybody, and thank you for being flexible and participating only through chat. It's been lovely. So thank you again. As you may recall, the book, of course, is Fearless. Tina Moon is on here, so is Claire Becton. They're two of the remarkable people featured. And as I mentioned, the podcast, Fearless Women Podcast, you can hear Claire has been on it, and certainly Sherry as well. So join our Fearless community, because absolutely we love to have you part of it. And I see, oh, Laura, you actually came on. I'm glad you were able to join us, Laura. Thank you for sticking it out, and all the best for 2021 and beyond. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Janice. I know you can't hear me, but if the rest of the audience can give me the thumbs up that they can hear me, I'm perfect. Okay. I'm just going to
I know Virginia's saying lovely things, so.
I just want to thank you, Janice. Hear this recording after. And
thank you, everybody.
I just have some slides I'm going to go over with Gary. So thank you very, very much, Janice, for joining us. Okay, for any of you that are still around, again, Janice spoke to her book, Fearless, Girls with Dreams, Women with Vision, and it is available at Indigo, Costco, Amazon. It's now a bestseller, and we'd love that if you could support Janice by purchasing the book. We also have upcoming virtual book clubs in February, March, April, and beyond. So in February, Jody Kovitz is going to join us with Go Out of Your Way. One small act can move the dial in business and life. And Glory Meldrum will join us with her book Warrior. And Leslie Ann Scorgi will speak to 2 of her financial advice books in April. We are also promoting our membership right now. It's a great time to join. We are about to end the offer of a $99 membership. So if that's something that you're interested in, it does get you into all of our events, either for free or at a discount. And that $99 will be going up shortly. We are also almost about to begin our Wisdom Mentoring Program for 2021, and we match our mentees with top 100 award winners. We have some amazing women that we will be matching people with for our 2021 season. And registration is closing January 31st. So right now we're offering an unprecedented price of $900 for members and for non-members $1,200. And there is a payment plan available should you wish to use that. We have some other upcoming virtual events. Every Monday, we have a Monday Mojo with our WXN ambassadors. We have one more in January, and then with Prem Gill and Bailey Parnell, and that's on safe social media practices. And then in February, we have Mali Wong and Denise Potier, and they will be joining us to talk about the ripple effect. So reflections, intentions, planning, and legacy, which is great for 2021. As well, we've partnered with IG Wealth Management, and we have a 4-part series. So 3 out of our 4 are left for January 28th, February 11th, and February 25th. And these are free events for all. So please do join us. There's some fabulous panels of women in each session giving advice for 2021. Thank you everyone for attending our event today, and we look forward to seeing you at future events. Thank you.